August 17th, 1942. The Berlin heat pressed down like a wet wool blanket. I stood outside SS headquarters on Prinz Albrecht Strasse, my hand trembling as I reached for the heavy oak door. Not from fear, though God knows I should have been afraid. My hand shook because I knew. Deep in my bones, past reason, past hope, I knew what they were going to ask me to do. My name is Kurt Gerstein, SS Obersturmführer, a lieutenant in the Waffen SS Hygiene Institute. On paper, I'm a sanitation expert, water purification, disinfection systems, typhus prevention. Clean water for the Reich. Clean barracks, clean uniforms, clean hands. But nothing about the SS is clean. The corridors inside smelled of floor wax and stale cigarette smoke. My boots clicked against marble floors, polished to mirrors. Every surface reflected back my uniform, the death's head on my cap, the lightning bolts on my collar. I joined this organization 2 years ago with one purpose: to see what they were hiding, to document it, to stop it. Now they were about to show me everything. Gerstein, you're late. Gruppenführer Globoknik didn't look up from his desk. He was a thick man, Austrian accent, eyes like dead fish. He shuffled papers with meaty fingers, each one probably a death warrant dressed up as a requisition form. My apologies, Herr Gruppenführer. The train from... I don't care. He finally looked at me. You're the chemist, yes? The disinfection specialist? Yes, Herr Gruppenführer. Good. He slid a folder across the desk. You're being reassigned. Special project. Operation Reinhard. You'll receive orders to travel east. Poland. Several locations. Your expertise is required for sanitation improvements. The folder sat between us like a coiled snake. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to open it. But my hand moved anyway, pulled by duty or fate, or the terrible momentum of history. Inside were train schedules, supply lists, chemical formulas, and one word, repeated across multiple documents: Zyklon. Zyklon B? I kept my voice steady. That's a delousing agent. Hydrogen cyanide. Very effective against lice, and we're using something else now. Globoknik lit a cigarette, exhaled toward the ceiling. Crude oil engines, diesel exhaust, but it's slow, inefficient. We need your assessment of alternatives. Zyklon B might be faster. My throat tightened. Alternatives for what, exactly? He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Sanitation. What else? Before I could respond, he stood. Conversation over. You leave tomorrow. First stop, Belzec. Then Treblinka. You'll observe operations, evaluate current methods, and recommend improvements. Everything you see is classified under Nacht und Nebel, night and fog. You understand? I understand, Herr Gruppenführer. Good. Dismissed. I stood, saluted, turned to leave. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. At the door, Globoknik's voice stopped me. Gerstein. One more thing. He hadn't looked up from his papers. This work, it requires a certain detachment. If you're going to be useful, you need to see it as a technical problem. Nothing more. Can you do that? I thought about my sister-in-law, Bertha, dead in a Nazi euthanasia facility, gassed because they called her mentally unfit. I thought about why I'd really joined the SS: to witness, to document, to carry the truth out of hell itself. Yes, Herr Gruppenführer, I lied. I can do that. August 18th. The train east cut through countryside that should have been beautiful, golden wheat fields, small villages with church steeples, children waving from dirt roads. But I couldn't see beauty, only the future, only what was coming. I shared a compartment with an SS doctor named Wilhelm Pfannenstiel, hygiene professor from Marburg University. He talked the entire journey about water tables, about bacterial counts, about the challenges of maintaining sanitary conditions in labor camps. He used the word labor camps like it meant something real. You've been to these facilities before? I asked him. Belzec? No, but I've inspected several labor installations. The typhus problem is severe. These people, he lowered his voice, though we were alone, they bring disease with them, poor hygiene, cultural factors. It's a genuine public health crisis. And how do we solve it? He looked at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. Isolation. Quarantine. In extreme cases, elimination of vectors. Standard epidemiological practice. Vectors. That's what we were calling them now. Not people, not Jews. Vectors. The train slowed as we approached Belzec. Late afternoon. The sun hung low and orange, casting long shadows across the platform. But there was no platform, just siding, a fence, guard towers, and beyond them, nothing, just trees, just silence. A young SS sergeant met us. His name was Klein. Couldn't have been more than 20. Baby fat was still in his cheeks, but his eyes were old, ancient. Welcome to Belzec, gentlemen. The Hauptsturmführer is waiting. We walked through the gates. The smell hit me first, sweet and rotten at once, like fruit left too long in the sun, like meat going bad. My stomach lurched, but I kept walking, kept my face neutral. Technical problem. Nothing more. The camp was small. Smaller than I'd expected. A few wooden buildings, a rail spur running straight into the center, and at the end of the tracks, that's the reception area, Klein explained. They arrive by train. We process them, separate luggage, and redirect them to the showers. Showers, I repeated. Yes, sir, for delousing. Then they're transferred to labor details. Lies, every word is a lie wrapped in bureaucratic language. I wanted to grab this boy by his collar and shake him until the truth fell out. But I just nodded. Keep walking. The Hauptsturmführer camp commandant was a squat man named Worth, Christian Worth. He greeted us in front of a long, low building with a Star of David painted on the door. Gentlemen, he didn't salute, didn't extend his hand. I understand you're here to evaluate our procedures. Correct, Van Onsteel said. We're particularly interested in— You'll see everything, Worth interrupted. We have a transport arriving tomorrow morning, 700 from Lvov. You can observe the entire process. The entire process, I said slowly. Worth looked at me. Really looked at me. His eyes were intelligent, alert. He was measuring something, testing me. Yes, Obersturmführer Gerstein. The entire process. From arrival to completion. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bunk in the SS barracks, listening to Van Onsteel's snore, smelling that sweet rotten smell seeping through the walls. Through the small window, I could see the building with the Star of David. No lights inside, no sound, just darkness pressed against darkness. I'd come here to witness, to document. But now, standing at the edge of the abyss, I wondered if witnessing was enough, if documentation could ever be enough, if any human action could ever be enough to answer what we'd done. At 3 in the morning, I got up. I walked outside. A guard called out, "Halt!" But when he saw my uniform, he lowered his rifle. I stood in the yard between the barracks and the building. That smell is stronger now, unmistakable. I'd lied to Globoknik. I couldn't see this as a technical problem, because I knew what that building was, what it had to be. Tomorrow I will see it with my own eyes. Tomorrow I will become a witness to hell. August 19th. Dawn came gray and cold. Fog clung to the ground like something living, something trying to hide what this place really was. The transport arrived just after 7. I heard it before I saw it, the screech of brakes, the hiss of steam, then voices, hundreds of voices, crying, calling names, asking questions in Yiddish, in Polish, in German. Where are we? Is this a labor camp? I have papers. My work permits. Please, I need to show someone. Worth stood beside me on a small platform overlooking the arrival area. Van Onsteel on my other side, notebook already out, pen ready. A technical observation. A scientific study. The boxcar doors opened. People poured out. Old men, young women, Children, clutching dolls. A mother, holding a baby. They stumbled, exhausted from days in the cars, blinking in the pale light. Some looked relieved to be off the train. Some looked terrified. All of them looked human. Standard procedure. Worth narrated. They surrender luggage. We tell them it will be returned after processing. Speeds things up. Reduces resistance. Reduces resistance, I echoed. Ukrainian guards, prisoners themselves, pressed into service, shouted orders. Leave your bags! Form lines! Men to the left, women and children to the right. An old man tried to keep his suitcase. A guard hit him with a rifle butt. He fell. The woman next to him, his wife, maybe screamed. The guard hit her too. Some resistance is inevitable, Worth said calmly, but it's minimal once they reach the shower building. The shower building. The building with the Star of David. They were herded forward, told to undress. You'll shower, then receive work assignments. More lies, more language designed to calm, to confuse, to move bodies from point A to point B without panic. I watched a young woman, maybe 25, help an elderly woman remove her coat. Gentle, patient. She smiled at the old woman, whispered something in her ear. The old woman nodded, smiled back. They had no idea. Gerstein. Worth's voice pulled me back. We're going to the observation area. You'll see the chambers themselves. The current system uses 3 diesel engines from captured Soviet tanks. Exhaust is piped into sealed rooms. It usually takes 25 to 30 minutes usually, sometimes longer. We walked around the building, through a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Inside was a narrow corridor with small windows set into one wall, peepholes. Through them, I could see into the chambers. They were empty now. Concrete floors, wooden walls. Shower heads mounted on the ceiling fake, just for show. And in the corner, partially hidden, the pipe, the exhaust pipe. How many at once? Pfannenstiel asked. Still taking notes. 200 per chamber. 3 chambers total. So, 600 per cycle. With turnaround time, we can process about 1,500 daily. Process. Like they were photographs. Like they were paperwork. Outside, the voices were getting closer. The line moving forward. I could hear a child crying. A man praying. The Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. They're about to enter, Worth said. You'll want to watch. I didn't want to watch. Every fiber of my being screamed to run, to smash these windows, to unlock those doors. But I stood frozen, a witness, a coward, a man who told himself that seeing mattered more than stopping. The doors opened. They were pushed inside, packed tight, body against body. Still, some looked calm, still believing the lie about showers, about work, about survival. The doors sealed, heavy metal, locked from outside. Worth moved to a speaking tube. Start the engines. Through the peephole, I saw them realize, saw the exact moment truth replaced hope, saw panic spread like fire through dry grass. They pushed toward the doors, screamed, pounded, prayed louder. The engines coughed to life. Diesel smoke began filling the chambers. Usually it takes 30 minutes, Worth said. But the engines are temperamental, sometimes 45. We're evaluating Zyklon B because it's faster. 2 to 3 minutes, more efficient. Efficient. That word again. I couldn't look away. I couldn't close my eyes. Because this was why I'd come. To witness. To remember every detail. Every face pressed against the glass. Every hand that reached out. Every mouth that formed words I couldn't hear but understood anyway. Help us. Please. Why? Pfannenstiel was still taking notes, still asking technical questions. What's the carbon monoxide concentration? Have you measured lung tissue damage? What about disposal of remains? But I wasn't listening to him. I was watching through that peephole, watching people die, watching them climb over each other, trying to reach air that wasn't there, watching them hold children up, trying to give them one more breath, one more second. The young woman I'd seen earlier, the one who'd helped the elderly woman, was visible near the glass. Her face was turning blue. Her eyes were bulging. But she wasn't fighting anymore. She'd wrapped her arms around the old woman, held her close, and as they sank to the floor together, I saw her lips move one last time. I don't know what she said. A prayer, maybe, or a name, or just a final fuck you to everyone who'd allowed this. After 32 minutes, the screaming stopped. After 35, the movement stopped. After 40, Worth checked his watch and nodded. Open the ventilation, give it 10 minutes. Then the Sonderkommando can clear the chambers. The Sonderkommando, Jewish prisoners forced to remove the bodies, forced to clean up, forced to carry their own families, their own neighbors, to the burial pits. I turned away from the peephole. My legs wouldn't hold me. I braced against the wall. Pfannenstiel was still writing, still analyzing, still treating this as a sanitation problem. Fascinating, he muttered, though I wonder about the metabolic. Stop. My voice came out harsh. Broken. Just stop. He looked at me, surprised. Are you ill, Gerstein? Ill. Yes, I was ill, sick to my soul, poisoned by what I'd seen. But I couldn't say that. Couldn't break cover. Couldn't reveal that I was anything other than a good SS officer doing his technical duty. The air, I managed. Residual gas. We should step outside. Worth watched me carefully. That measuring look again. Then he nodded. Of course. Let's discuss your assessment. Outside, the sun was higher. The fog had burned away. It was a beautiful day. Birds were singing in the trees beyond the fence. Somewhere in the distance, a farmer was working his field. The world kept turning, even here, even now. We stood in Worth's office, maps on the walls showing the general government, rail lines marked in red, camps circled, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, a constellation of death. Your assessment? Worth poured schnapps into 3 glasses. His hand was steady. This was just another day's work for him. I forced myself to think technically, to push down the screaming in my head, to be the chemist they needed me to be. The diesel system is inefficient, I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else, someone hollow. Engine failures delay operations. Victims suffer longer than necessary. Creates more trauma for guards, more resistance from prisoners. Worth nodded. Agreed. That's why we're considering alternatives. Zyklon B would be faster, I continued. Hydrogen cyanide affects cellular respiration immediately, loss of consciousness within seconds, death within 2 to 3 minutes. Pfannenstiel leaned forward. But doesn't Zyklon B require pellets? Special application? Yes. The pellets must be heated to release the gas. You'd need ventilation systems, trained handlers, precise calculation of required amounts based on room volume and victim count. I was describing the most efficient way to murder people. I was improving their system, but I had to. I had to make them trust me. I had to get them to show me more, to tell me more, to give me everything I needed to expose this to the world. Could you procure it? Worth asked. The Zyklon B? Through your position at the Hygiene Institute? This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I'd prepared for. Yes, I said, I can get it. Large quantities, and I can train your personnel in proper application. Worth smiled. Actually smiled. Excellent. Globoknik was right about you, Gerstein. You understand the necessity of this work. Necessity. As if genocide could ever be necessary. As if there was any mathematical or logical or moral equation that added up to what I'd just witnessed. But I nodded, raised my glass. To be efficient. To efficiency, they echoed. The schnapps burned going down. Not enough to wash away the taste of ash and death that coated my throat. That night, back in Berlin, I sat at my desk until dawn. Writing. Recording. Every detail I could remember. Every face, every scream, every second of those 40 minutes. My wife Elfriede found me there in the morning. She saw the papers, saw my face. She was one of the few who knew why I'd really joined the SS. "You got what you needed?" she whispered. "Yes." "Then you can stop now. You can get out." I looked at her. This woman who'd stood by me through everything, through my imprisonment by the Gestapo before the war, when I'd spoken against the regime, through my dangerous decision to infiltrate the SS, through every sleepless night and whispered conversation and moment of terror that they'd discover the truth. "I can't stop," I said. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because they trust me now. Because they're going to show me more. Because I'm the only one who can get this information out." "To who, Kurt?" Her voice broke. "Who will you tell? Who will believe you? The Allies already know. The Vatican knows. Everyone knows, and no one does anything." She was right. I'd already tried. I met with a Swedish diplomat named Göran von Otter on a train to Warsaw. Told him everything. He'd promised to relay it to his government, to the Allies. But nothing changed. The trains kept running. The camps kept operating. "Then I'll tell more people," I said. "I'll tell everyone. I'll make it impossible to ignore." Elfriede touched my face. Her hand was cold. "Just promise me you'll survive this. Promise me you won't become what you're fighting." I couldn't promise that. Because every time I requisitioned more Zyklon B, every time I provided technical advice, every time I played my role as the efficient SS chemist, I was becoming exactly that. A collaborator, a facilitator, a man whose name would be on the requisition forms for the chemicals that killed thousands. But I could promise to remember, to document, to carry these stories out of the darkness. "I'll survive," I told her. "I'll make sure the truth survives." Months passed. I traveled to Treblinka, to Sobibor, to Auschwitz, saw the system expand. I saw it become more efficient, saw Zyklon B replace diesel in some facilities, saw the numbers grow, hundreds of thousands, then millions. And I kept documenting, kept gathering evidence, kept trying to find someone, anyone, who would act on what I told them. I met with church leaders, Swiss diplomats, resistance fighters. I even tried to reach the British through intermediaries. I gave them numbers, locations, chemical orders, everything they'd need to bomb the camps, to stop the transports, to at least slow the machinery of death. Nothing changed. Sometimes I wondered if Elfriede was right, if everyone already knew, if the world had decided these lives weren't worth the cost of stopping, if I was the only one who still believed that witnessing mattered. April 1945. Berlin was burning. Soviet artillery shaking the ground. The Reich is collapsing around us. I was in a bunker beneath the Hygiene Institute, burning papers, destroying evidence that I'd destroyed evidence. A spiral of covering tracks and covering lies, but I'd already sent copies out. To Stockholm, to Switzerland, to the Vatican. Testimony, numbers, names, everything I'd seen, everything I'd been forced to participate in. An SS officer I didn't know appeared in the doorway, young, terrified. "Obersturmführer Gerstein, orders from the Reichsführer. All personnel are to evacuate to the Alpine Redoubt. Trucks are leaving in 1 hour." I looked at the flames, consuming the last of the files. "I'm not going." "Sir, that's desertion. They'll what? Shoot me? The war is over. In a week, maybe 2, the Allies will be here, and when they come, I'm going to tell them everything." He stared at me, trying to understand, trying to reconcile my uniform with my words. "You're insane," he finally said. Then he ran. I walked out of the bunker, into the burning city, smoke and ash falling like snow. Buildings are collapsing, people fleeing, the end of everything. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years, something like relief, something like hope. Because soon I wouldn't have to hide anymore. Soon I could tell the truth not in whispers to diplomats who wouldn't act, but in daylight, to judges, to journalists, to anyone who would listen. I surrendered to French forces on April 22nd, told them immediately who I was, what I'd seen, what I'd done. They arrested me, of course they did. I was SS. I wore the death's head. My name was on requisition forms for the gas that killed millions. But I talked, For days, I talked, dictated testimony, drew maps, named names, gave them everything. On July 25, 1945, they found me dead in my cell, hanging. The official report said suicide. Maybe it was. Maybe after carrying that weight for 3 years, after seeing what I'd seen, after participating in what I'd participated in, maybe I couldn't live with it anymore. Or maybe someone decided I knew too much, I talked too much, that my testimony was too dangerous, even after the war. I'll never know. You'll never know. But my testimony survived. The documents I'd smuggled out survived. The truth survived. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any witness can hope for, that the truth survives them, that the story gets told, that the faces pressed against that glass, the hands that reached out, the voices that screamed for help, that they're remembered, not as statistics, not as victims, but as people, as the young woman who held the old woman as they died, as the man who kept his dignity even as they beat him, as the child who cried for their mother, as 700 individual human beings who deserve to live, who deserve to be remembered. I couldn't save them. I couldn't stop it. But I could witness. I could document. I could make sure that when history wrote this chapter, it wrote their names, not just numbers. That was my mission, my penance, my curse. And now it's yours. You've seen what I saw, through my eyes. You've walked through Belzec. You've looked through that peephole. You've stood in that office and discussed efficiency and necessity and technical problems. You can't unsee it now. None of us can. And that's the point. That's why witnessing matters. Why documentation matters. Why do we tell these stories even when they're unbearable to hear? Because the moment we stop seeing them as people, the moment we let them become statistics or history or something that happened long ago to someone else, that's the moment it can happen again. So remember, bear witness to my witness. Carry these faces forward. That's all I ask. That's all they ask. Remember us.